Well, it is 8:02, and I don't know if it was the time change, but no one is here, so I am going to do the recording. And unless I hear otherwise, this will probably be the last week I do this. Okay, so I really have no idea why so many people wait till Sunday to do all the work. It seems to me that you are piling yourself up on one day, and I think quality suffers. I think your nerves probably suffer, and you're probably more stressed. So I really don't understand what's behind that. All right, so feedback on participation. Make sure your postings are academic rather than conversational. Try to add new information to the discussion. Don't just repeat what you've read in the textbook or whatever other source you might be using. Try to demonstrate that you understand the concepts that are being discussed. And use higher level thinking skills, which includes application, analysis, developing insights, and conclusions. Okay, so for Module 5, what I was looking for was for you to look at the value of both emotional and rational appeals. It was also called creative and management. Looking at different products and services, emotional or rational might be better. If someone is buying a low ticket item, doesn't cost much money, emotional may be the best appeal. But if you're selling something that's costly, people are going to want more than an emotional appeal. They're going to want to know the features, the benefits, what they get. So think about what kind of product or service is being sold. Think about the target audience and think about the desired results. Just because emotional might be more appealing to you as an individual doesn't mean that emotional advertising is always the best. There are instances where rational might be better. There are instances where a combination might be better. Try to develop insights and don't just report on the ads that you selected. The execution styles that were looked at in your blog included straight sell or factual, scientific or technical, demo, comparison, testimonial, slice of life, animation, personality, symbol, imagery, dramatization, humor. And of course, some ads do a combination of these different execution styles. So what I was looking for in the blog was for you to discuss and define 3 styles. Most of you mentioned at least 3 styles, but some didn't say what the style meant. You needed to provide an example of each style, discussing the ad and showing the ad, and explain how the example reflects the style. Share analysis and insights, and use the textbook at minimum as a citation and reference. This is for me, really. If you send a link, for instance, to YouTube or to a picture, what happens is that I exit SNHU website to see the link. Then I have to go back, go to your next link, and I just keep going in and out and in and out. And as you can imagine, with 25 plus people, going in and out several times is time consuming. So I'm asking, if possible, if your next blog or any other assignment asks you to provide a link, if you could embed the link, excuse me, rather than sending me off-site to see it. Thank you. Citations and references. Citations and references must match. References show where you got the information. Citation shows how and where you use the information. Do not use a citation if you don't have a reference, or don't do a reference without a citation. And remember, if you didn't cite it, if you didn't write it rather, you must cite it. And once again, the proper citation for your textbook is Belch and Belch. You need to use both authors in the citation when there are 2 authors. Okay, so discussion 6.1 for this module. You're going to use an example of an agency where the client asks you to break a law and the client wants more publicity. You're going to discuss the potential unethical or practices of guerrilla marketing. Discuss what should be done to curb some of these practices. You definitely want to curb unethical, and guerrilla has to be used carefully because there are instances where guerrilla marketing may cross the line of unethical or certainly straddle that line. For 6.2, you're going to use a company focusing on media, education, and communication industries. You're going to visit a website in the link provided in the discussion. Develop insights about the trends. Are things growing or shrinking? How do the trends impact planning? And discuss the potential of losing audiences and the impact. In Module 6, you need engagement postings. You need 2 replies in 6.1 and 2 in 6.2. Make sure you focus on content rather than opinion in your engagement postings. Be detailed and analytical. Don't just tell me, I think, I feel, I believe. And use sources. Sources should be used on engagement postings. Module 6, Milestone 3. I talked about this last week, but I was planning on going over it again this evening. It's about segmentation, targeting, and positioning. You're going to be looking at demographics, which is the descriptors, the psychographics, why people do things, and the geographics, where people are located. You're going to profile the market segments. You're going to produce a positioning map. You're going to use the worksheet that is provided. In the learning, you go to the learning module, table of contents, assignment and guidelines rubric, and then you will see final project segmentation process and worksheet. Writing, I've been over this before, but it bears repeating. Do not use first person, you, your, or contractions. It's much better to paraphrase than quote. Paraphrasing shows that you understand. Quoting shows that you found a quote. Avoid superlatives. They are rarely true and difficult to prove. Every, all, never, always are all superlatives. Avoid very. It is an overused and unnecessary word. Avoid phrases like in order to. It is much better to use to. Avoid generalities like the entire world or valuation. This is a great idea. Just say it's an idea. Check the use of apostrophe, companies versus companies. Avoid unnecessary phrases, for instance, when it comes to as well as. Try to avoid ending sentences with a preposition, words like in, to, on. Avoid rhetorical questions. If you're going to say according to someone, it is according to the author, not the publication. It's according to the author, not the publication. And check for wordos, cliches, and redundancies. Wordos are the words that are spelled correctly but the wrong word. Cliches are redundant expressions that don't have any meaning. And redundancies are you're saying the same thing in several different ways. For instance, a new innovation is a redundancy. And all of those things were explained in detail, I think, in the second week. Use last name only and publication date in citations. Do not use download date. If there is no date, use N period, D period, but do not use the download date in the space for the publication date. And it is better to find articles that actually have a publication date, because then you know if it's a new article or an old article. If you are quoting, you need to add the page or paragraph number to the citation. You can also add a chapter number. I already mentioned this, both authors every time for citations, for papers, for postings. My suggestions for headings for the next paper is I would use veggies as my first heading, because I would give a brief overview of veggies. I would talk about market characteristics. Headings are bolded after the first heading. Then I would talk about internal communication. I'd use demographics, psychographics, and geographics as a level 2 heading. Do you have to use a level 2 heading? Absolutely not. Market profile would be my next level 1 heading. I would then use segmentation, targeting, and positioning as a level 2. Will you lose points if you don't do level 2 headings? Absolutely not. Then I would have a summary. my reference page, and in the appendix, I would put the positioning map. We looked at a positioning map last week. This is the same one. It was high quality, low quality, high price, low price. When you're doing a positioning map, you select the parameters. For veggies, you could use fresh food, frozen food, locally grown, imported, or characteristics of veggies. You could use different parameters that would position veggies against their competition. Again, you decide what the best thing is, and then you would map out where each one of the competitors are. Most of you picked a variety of competitors. My suggestion to some of the teams was make sure that you don't just use Wendy's, Burger King, and McDonald's. Use things like Panera Bread, Chipotle, Au Bon Pain, and other things that are fast food, but they're more healthy, and sometimes they call themselves good food served quickly. We talked a little bit about research. I wanted to repeat it. Use the library, use the advanced search to give you more topics, use business journal articles, and here's some sources that are good ones. Be really careful of Google because it gets you into purchase paper sites, it gets you into blogs, it gets you into websites selling services, none of which are credible or reliable sources. You want to be using business journal articles. Make sure your references and citations match. Do not list a source as a reference if it is not cited. Use publication date. Write titles of books and journals in italics. On the reference page, you don't use words like volume, issue, and pages. And make sure your references are listed alphabetically. They are not numbered. They are not in the order they were used. They are listed alphabetically. And if the author's names on the work are not alphabetical, don't change the order. Sources, Google can be a good starting point, but it should not be your ending point for research. Websites selling services and blogs and cheat sites are not good. Dictionaries and encyclopedias are not good for graduate level work. And be really careful of purchase paper sites. They are sometimes hard to pick out, but they are something that you should not be using. Plagiarism is not something you want to be doing. Best practices is to apply and analyze, don't just report. Make sure you demonstrate your depth of understanding of the topic. Use appropriate sources to support key points. And this, I think, is the most important thing. This would be for whatever person is the last person who's going to be submitting the paper for the group, and read it aloud before submitting. Make sure it doesn't read like a bunch of documents thrown together. It should flow smoothly, and make sure everything is right. The easiest way of doing that is to read it out loud. I was going to go over something about grit and growth mindsets, but I am not going to do that. The slides are here if anyone wants to see it. So I still don't think anyone is here, so I am going to stop sharing. And I am going to stop the recording, and I will post the recording. Please let me know